The wind howled over the parched prairie, carrying the scent of dust and trouble. Eli Carter was fixing the fence on his lonely ranch when he saw her, a frail, barefoot girl stumbling down the dirt road, clutching her belly. She collapsed in the dirt before she could even say her name. Eli carried her inside, set bread and beans on the table, and poured her water. She ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Only when she finally looked up did she whisper, "She's coming for me." "Who?" Eli asked. The girl's lips trembled. "My mama. And you don't want to be here when she rides in." Eli lives alone, haunted by the death of his wife and child years ago. The girl, about 10 years old, won't give her name at first. That night, thunder rumbles over the plains. Eli hears distant hoofbeats, more than one horse, fast. He goes for his rifle, but the girl suddenly shouts, "No. She'll shoot if you point that at her." The day had been long, and the sun was just a red smear sinking behind the far hills when Eli Carter set the last board on the corral fence. His hands were cracked and raw, the kind of hands that had known more work than comfort. He walked back toward the cabin, boots crunching in the dirt, thinking of nothing more than coffee and maybe a few quiet minutes on the porch. Inside, the girl sat at his kitchen table, legs drawn up under her like a scared cat. She'd eaten well earlier, but her eyes still darted around the room like she expected someone to burst through the door at any moment. He'd tried 3 times to get her name. Each time, she just shook her head. "Ain't safe," she'd whisper, as if even the walls might be listening. Eli didn't push her. He knew what it meant to be carrying something too heavy to speak about. After all, he'd been living alone for 5 years, ever since his wife and boy died in that fever that swept through the valley. Losing them had carved a hole inside him, one he'd filled with chores and silence. By the time the first raindrops pattered against the roof, the prairie had gone black. A low rumble of thunder rolled across the plains, slow and distant at first, then growing louder. Eli set his coffee down and stood. He didn't like storms, not because of the rain, but because they made it hard to hear what might be coming. And something was coming. At first, it was just a tremor under his boots, so faint he thought it might be his imagination. But then it came again, steady, deliberate. Hoofbeats. Not one horse. Several. Riding hard. Eli crossed to the wall where his Winchester leaned in its usual spot. He checked the chamber, slid the lever shut, and moved toward the door. The girl's chair scraped against the floor as she jumped up. "No." He froze, rifle halfway to his shoulder. Her eyes were wide now, full of something that looked an awful lot like fear, but not of the riders outside. "Don't do that," she said, her voice trembling. "What are you talking about?" Eli asked. She took a step toward him, her small hands clenched into fists. "If you point that at her, she'll shoot. She won't wait, she won't ask. She'll just shoot you dead." Eli's brow furrowed. "Her?" The girl nodded, breathing fast. Lightning flashed through the window, white and sharp, and for a split second, he saw a figure on horseback cresting the ridge, tall in the saddle, a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. The hoofbeats grew louder. The storm was closing in. And Eli realized that whoever she was, the girl already knew her very, very well. Rain hammered the roof, a relentless drumbeat that drowned the world in noise. Lightning split the sky, throwing the prairie into a jagged flash of white before plunging it back into darkness. Eli stood just inside the cabin door, rifle in hand, boots braced on the worn plank floor. The girl was crouched by the hearth, staring at the doorway like it might open into hell itself. Through the sheets of rain, a lone figure emerged, tall and straight-backed in the saddle, a wide-brimmed hat pulled low enough to hide her face. Her coat, long and leather, flapped in the wind, its edges torn and stained. The horse beneath her steamed in the cold, breath puffing in short, hard bursts. Whoever she was, she'd been riding hard for miles. Eli's gut tightened. Something about the way she moved, unhurried but deliberate, told him this wasn't just another traveler looking for shelter. The rider drew closer until the storm swallowed her completely. Then, with a wet slap of hooves against the muddy yard, she reappeared in the lamplight spilling from Eli's cabin. She swung down in one smooth motion, boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. 2 pistols rode her hips, well-worn grips polished by years of use. Even in the rain, she carried herself like a woman who knew she was dangerous. When she stepped forward and pushed the brim of her hat back, Eli's breath caught. He knew that face, sharp as a hawk's, a scar cutting from her right temple to her cheek. Clara Boone. He'd seen her name on wanted posters nailed to the sheriff's office walls in 3 territories: robbery, jailbreak, and murder. A woman who'd once led her own gang and left a trail of blood from Kansas to New Mexico. And now she was here. The door banged open, wind shoving it hard enough to rattle the hinges. Clara stepped inside without hesitation, rain streaming off her hat brim and coat. She didn't bother looking around. Her eyes locked straight on the girl by the fire. "Where's my girl?" she demanded, voice low and edged with steel. Eli moved before he could think, putting himself between them. "She's half dead. I'm not letting you drag her back into whatever hell you live in." Clara stopped just short of him, close enough that Eli could smell leather, gun oil, and the faint bite of whiskey. She wasn't breathing hard from the ride, but her eyes were fierce, bright with the kind of fire that made men step aside. Her right hand hovered near her revolver, fingers twitching once before stilling. "You got no idea what's coming if you don't hand her over." Eli squared his shoulders. "You think pointing a gun at me's gonna change my mind? Not a chance." That earned him the smallest curl of her lip. Not quite a smile, not quite a threat, something in between. "I don't shoot unless I have to. But the men chasing me?" She tilted her head toward the door, rain roaring just beyond it. "They won't ask twice. They'll cut you down, burn this place to the ground, and take her whether you're breathing or not." From behind Eli, the girl's voice broke in, trembling but desperate. "Mama, they're coming?" Eli's head snapped around. "Mama?" The girl's small face peeked around his leg, her eyes wide. "She's my mama. We've been running for days. They killed Uncle Ray." Eli looked between them, mind reeling. "So you left her to starve on the road?" Clara's jaw tightened. "I left her hidden. Safe. I doubled back to throw them off, but they're better trackers than I thought." Thunder boomed, shaking the walls. For a heartbeat, the 3 of them just stared at each other, the air thick with distrust. Eli lowered the rifle slightly but didn't put it away. "And why should I believe you?" Clara didn't flinch. "Because if you step outside right now, you'll see torches on the ridge." Eli hesitated, then crossed to the nearest window. Lightning flashed, and there they were. 4 riders, black against the sky, flames flickering in their hands. He cursed under his breath. "Damn it." Clara took a step closer. "You can stand in my way and die, or you can help me keep her alive." Eli turned back to her, studying her face. He'd met killers before, some cold, some cruel. But there was something in Clara Boone's eyes he hadn't expected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even hate. It was a kind of desperate protectiveness he recognized deep down in himself, because once upon a time, he'd have done anything to keep his wife and boy safe. The girl's small hand tugged at his coat. "Please, Mr. Eli. Don't let them take me." He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. "Fine. But if you try to pull me into whatever mess you've got going." Clara cut him off with a short nod. "We don't have time for speeches. Barricade the door. Get your rifle loaded. They'll be here before the next lightning strike." Outside, the hoofbeats were already growing louder, the rhythm quick and sure. Eli shoved the door closed and dropped the bar into place. "You'd better be worth the trouble, Boone." Clara's eyes gleamed in the lamplight as she drew one of her pistols and checked the cylinder. "You'll find out soon enough." The girl finally speaks, "Mama, they killed Uncle Ray. They're coming after us next." Turns out Clara didn't abandon her, they'd been running from the same gang for weeks. Eli realizes the riders in the storm aren't the law, they're the gang. Lightning flashes outside, shadows move past the windows. Clara throws Eli a pistol. "You said you wanted to protect her? Then fight." Gunfire tears through the ranch walls. Eli and Clara fight side by side, covering the girl as she hides under the table. Eli takes down 2 men, Clara shoots with deadly precision. When it's over, 3 outlaws lay in the mud. Clara, bleeding from a graze, thanks Eli without looking him in the eye.